lesson, we're going to talk a little bit about some different vocabulary to do with functions. Go ahead, we are starting a new unit, so make a new tab. You can title your tab Functions. Okay, so a new tab, new unit. And our title for today is Functions, and our essential question is, what is a dependent relationship? And that's what we're looking at today. So take a minute and get your notebook set up. Okay, so we're going to talk about functions today. And the first thing I want us to define is a relation. Just trying to make this so you can see it really good. It looks a little blurry. Let's focus one more time. Okay, so a relation is simply a set of ordered pairs. A set of ordered pairs. And a set just means a group, okay? A group. And so we use brackets or braces, I guess those are called, to put it in a group. And so a set of ordered pairs, we just have a group of ordered pairs that might be written in brackets. That's a relation, okay? Now let's talk about what a function is. Now you've probably learned about a function before. We're going to look at it a little bit today in a non-mathematical sense, a more verbal, but a function is a dependent relationship, where one quantity depends on another. It's a dependent relationship where one quantity depends on another, okay? You also, another definition for function that we'll look at more tomorrow, and I want you to go ahead and write it down, is every input has exactly one output, or y value. Has exactly one output, or I don't want to try to say y value. And basically this means that x cannot repeat. X cannot repeat. Okay? And what I want us to look at today is I just want us to look at some dependent statements that are representatives of functions or dependent relationships. So here's an example. These are examples, and you're going to be writing your own today as well. How much I eat depends on how hungry I am. How much I eat depends on how hungry I am. That is a function. That is a dependent relationship. How much I eat depends on how hungry I am. So how hungry I am is determining how much I eat. Okay, that's one example. Another example. My cell phone battery life, my cell phone battery is a function of how much I use it. How much I use my phone. I'm trying to take out some words for you. My cell phone battery life is a function of how much I use it. And so what I want you to see here is I changed the wording just a little bit. Is a function of means the same thing as depends on. Okay, they mean the same thing. Those words are interchangeable. So the battery life is still depending on how much you're using your phone. Okay, so that's another example with a little bit different wording. And here's one more example. The number of baskets we make, so I'm talking basketball, the number of baskets we make determines the score. So I'm still stating a dependent relationship, but now I'm using the word determines. And so it kind of switches around what is depending on what. The score depends on the number of baskets we make. But we could also say that the number of baskets we make determines the score. Okay? Now the next thing I want us to understand is the independent variable and the dependent variable. The independent variable, when we start speaking mathematically, is always the x value. Okay, that's important. And it's independent. It does not depend on another. I mean, obviously, right? It's independent. It does not depend on another. It stands alone. Another way to think about it, it is not affected by another. It is not affected by another. Okay, the independent variable. At any point, if you need to stop to write and catch up, then please make sure you're using that pause button. Now the dependent variable, it does depend. It depends on something else. It depends on another. It depends on something else. The value is determined or affected by another. And since we said that the independent value is the x value, obviously then the dependent value is going to be our y value. Okay, so something to think about there. We're not going to really talk x and y today, but we will tomorrow. Okay, the last two words here. Well, before we do that, I want us to go back and look at our statements here. And I want us to identify what our independent and dependent variables are. So it says, how much I eat depends on how hungry I am. So our dependent variable, what is doing the depending? How much I eat is my dependent because it depends on my hunger. So my hunger is my independent. Hope you see that. In the next statement, it says my cell phone battery is a function of how much I use it. Remember, is a function of means the same thing as it depends on. So my cell phone battery life, that is my dependent, and how much I use it is my independent. My independent is affecting the battery life. Now the next one is a little bit different because we're using the word determines. The number of baskets we make determines the score. So the number of baskets we make, that is our independent, and the score is dependent on the number of baskets. Okay? Okay. The last two definitions, domain and range. And we do a lot with domain and range throughout the year. Domain is the set of all the x values. It is the set of all the x values, which means we could also call it the input or the independent variable. Domain, input, independent variable, x values. If you look at this relation that I wrote up here, if I wanted to list the domain of this relation, then all I'm going to do is list the x values, 2, 4, and 7. So in brackets, I would put 2, 4, and 7, and that would be my domain. And so if the domain is the set of all the x values, the range is the set of all the y values. Okay, so again, it's the output or dependent variable. Okay, output or the dependent. And if I go back to the top, my y values from my relation are 3, 6, and 8. So I would just list it as 3, 6, and 8. And we'll be working more with domain and range throughout this unit. So